we should Ohalos, you'd love.
Yeah.
Okay. If there is a skylight in the roof of a house and a pot is placed beneath the skylight so that if the pot was raised on its edges would not touch the roof surrounding the skylight, and there's tumor below, inside, or above the pot, the tumor penetrates upward and downward. If the pot is one above the ground and there's tumor below it or inside the house, the area below the pot and inside the house and the inside of the house become tummy. But whatever is inside or above the pot remains tahor. If the tumor is inside or above the pot, everything remains tummy. If a pot was placed on a threshold in such a way that it would extend over the outer handbreadth of the lintel, and there is tumor below, inside, or above the pot, the tumor penetrates upward and downward. If the pot is one above the ground and there's tumor below it or inside the house, the area below the pot and the area inside of the house become tummy, but whatever is inside or above the pot remains tahor. If the tumor is inside or above the pot, everything becomes tummy. If the pot was placed on the threshold so that it was raised, it would not touch an outer handbreadth of the lintel, or it is touching the sides of the lintel, and there's tumor underneath the pot. Only what is below the pot becomes tummy. If the roof of a house is split and tumor is on the outer part, utensils that are in the inner part remain tahor. If tumor is in the inner part, Beis Shammai says the split must be 4 tefachim wide for the outer part to remain tahor. Whereas Beis Hillel says it remains tahor even if the split is very small. And Rabbi Yossi says in the name of Beis Hillel, tefach. Okay.
All right. So if you have now, instead of a house that's been split in half, you've got a portico, just like a sheltered area outdoors, like a gazebo or something, and there's a crack down the middle that goes from side to side between the two halves. So now that's different from our previous case, because the previous case there's a clear outer section and inner section because that's where the door was. Now the whole thing is open to the air. So tumah b'tzad zeh, kelim sheb'tzad sheni tohim. Then if there's tumah on this side, then the kelim on the other side are completely tahor. Okay, and that's the easy part. Nasan is raglo or kane milamala. Now, if somebody is standing on the roof of that portico and they put their foot over the crack, or if they put a reed over the crack, well, I think last time we did this, I've got a note here in pencil that the bridge has to be a tefach wide, because if it's anything less than that, it can't convey tumah. Okay, then once you've got a 1 tefach bridge between the two halves of the roof, that joins the tumah onto both sides. Nasan is a kane ba'aretz. What happens if you put this 1 tefach wide reed across on the ground? Okay. Eino maybe is a tumah. That doesn't if that's directly under the crack, that is. Okay. That doesn't spread the tumah. That's just lying on the ground. So if as soon as it gets raised a tefach above the ground, then it is forming an ohel above the ground. And then what we have is this principle of good achis, where if we look at it as if it's attached to the roof. And therefore the tumah spreads underneath it and goes on to both sides. Okay. Now it gets even more interesting. Sagos aveh v'kofes aveh. So you've got these big, thick garments, right? A very heavy overcoat, which when it's lying on the ground, can be more than a tefach thick. Okay, so it's lying on the ground, bridging that gap. Einan mevi'in is a tumah. They do not spread the tumah. Achi yu gavoy min ha'aretz b'seach tefach. They have to actually form a bridge of a tefach between them. They have to be higher than a tefach from the ground in order to bridge that tumah. However, kefulim zu al gabe zu, if they are folded one on top of another, einan mevios is. So did I finish something? Yeah, right. Okay. Kefulim zu al gabe zu. Ein mevios is a tumah ajit ha elyona gavoy min ha'aretz b'seach tefach. Now, if these things are, if you have some clothing that's folded, and the top fold is more than a tefach above the ground, the entire top fold, that is, if the entire top fold is more than a tefach above the ground, we look at it as if it's a separate garment, and what's underneath it is kilu, it's not there, because the garment itself is susceptible to tumah, and therefore it can't block the tumah. It cannot fill up the ohel that's being formed thus by the by the top layer. So the top layer now forms an ohel over everything else and bridges the gap. Okay. Haya Adam nasun sham. Now, what happens if a person is lying across that gap? Is we view the person as a solid block, and you've got just a solid block of wood lying across the gap. There's no, it doesn't bring the tuma across. Adam chalolhu. We view a person as if he is hollow, and therefore if he's lying on his back, then his chest is a tefach above the ground, and we look at his body cavity as if that's entirely a gap. But tzada elyon maybe is a tuma, and therefore his body will spread the tuma from one side to the other side of the portico. Okay, this is listed in Adios among the chumras of Beis Hillel and the kulas of Beis Shammai. Similarly, Mishna Daled. Haya mashkof b'tzad hachalon. Okay, so here's a guy who is who's leaning out the window, looking over at the funeral ceremony going on below him. Okay, v'he'ehil al kovre hames, and he's leaning far out, enough that the people who are carrying the aron are walking directly underneath him, so they're brushing up against the wall below him, or whatever, however let's just keep it that way. There's a straight wall. He's leaning out the window, and the funeral ceremony goes directly beneath him. Okay, Beishamai omrim eino maybe is a tuma. He doesn't. We view him as a solid block of wood. Okay, Beis Hillel omrim maybe is a tuma. So no, we see once again that the person is considered hollow, and his back. His back now is the top part because he's leaning out the window, so his back forms an ohel over the ledge where he's coming. So where he's leaning over the ledge, his back forms an ohel over the mace that's outside and back in through the ledge and into the house.
So when they're walking, the cross bearers are walking with the mace. The
Yes.
mace, the tumor that the mace has goes straight up.
Goes straight up. So we're talking about
Right.
where the mace is directly underneath the guy who's leaning out the window.
Right. So
okay,
he doesn't spread tumor. Shammai says he doesn't spread the tumor, even though it goes straight up.
That's right. It goes straight up because Beis Shammai is saying it's not that he himself becomes tameh for sure. Everyone would agree he becomes tameh, but does he spread the tumor to inside the house? Is the question.
Okay, all right.
Because does he form an ohel? And Beis Shammai is saying no. It's like he's leaning on the windowsill. Okay, his body is on the windowsill. It's like you've got a big block of wood leaning out the windowsill. There's nothing to spread. Beis Hillel is saying no. He's an ohel. His back forms an ohel over the windowsill. So the tumor hits his head and goes through his body and into the house. So he himself is the conduit. Umodim. So Beis Shammai will agree with Beis Hillel. She'im haya lavush bekelav. Oh, up until now we were talking about a guy who's not wearing a shirt. Okay, that's where the machlokes is. But if he's wearing a shirt, then Beis Shammai will agree and say, well, no, his shirt, of course, forms an ohel. Because the person cannot block the ohel because he himself is susceptible to tumah. So the shirt forms an ohel on his back, and that will bring it into the house. Or if you've got two guys both leaning out the window, one on top of the other, then Beis Shammai will agree that the top guy, for sure, he forms an ohel because the guy underneath him is a tefach wide, and he can't block the ohel between himself and the windowsill.
Okay.
Okay, and that, by the way, now that certainly helps us to understand the previous Mishnah that when the guy was lying across the gap between in the crack in the portico, that we're talking about a guy who's not wearing a shirt. Because if he was wearing a shirt, then once again, Beis Shammai would look at that and say, oh yeah, the shirt is going to convey the tumah from one side to the other. So the only machlokes here is where he's not wearing a shirt. Okay, and that's it for today. Let's go back to Tes Aleph.
Okay, this one is okay. Tes Aleph. A beehive is located in the doorway of a house with its mouth outdoors. An olive spread Olive-sized piece of corpse is located outdoors, either below the hive or above it. Any item that is directly above or below the olive-sized plate piece becomes tamei. What is not directly below or above the olive-sized piece, then whatever is inside either the hive or the house remains tahu. If the olive-sized piece is inside the house, only that which is inside the house becomes tamei. If it is outside the hive, everything becomes tamei. The hive is one handbreadth above the ground, and there is tumah below it. Inside the house or above the hive, everything becomes tamei except for what is inside the hive. And if the tumah is inside the hive, everything becomes tamei. In what cases this apply? When the hive is a utensil with windows. However, if it was broken and stuffed with straw, or if the windows were covered, what is considered covered? When there is no window the size of a handbreadth, and an olive-sized piece of corpse is located underneath the hive, the utensils directly below the olive-sized piece, as deep as one can go, become tamei. If the olive-sized piece is above the hive, utensils directly above the olive-sized piece up to the sky become tamei. And if the olive-sized piece is inside the house, only the house becomes tamei. And if the olive-sized piece is inside the hive, only that which is inside becomes tamei.
Yeah.
And okay. Okay, hey. The following hides can become tamei with midrash tumah: a hide that one intended to use as a mat, a hide that serves as an apron, a hide that serves as a bedspread, a donkey's driver's hide, a flax worker's hide, a porter's hide, a doctor's hide, a cradle hide, a hide to cover the heart of a child, a hide of a pillow, and a hide of a mattress are all susceptible to midrash tumah. Regarding a comb maker's hide and a comb maker's hide, Reb Eliezer says they are susceptible to midrash tumah, but the comments say they are susceptible to corpse tumah. A garment case and a garment case and a garment fold are susceptible to midrash tumah. Regarding a case for purple wool and for a fold for purple wool, Shammai says they are susceptible to midrash tumah. Hillel say they are susceptible to corpse tumah. A hide that one made into a cover for utensil is tahar, but one used for weights is tamar. Rabbi Yossi said in the name of his father was tahar. Whatever further processing is not lacking, no thought renders utensils tamei, and wherever further processing is not lacking, thought does not render the utensils tamei except for a saddle cover.
Okay.
1, 2, tamid base, above base. The Kohen who won the privilege of his shovel service heaped up the coals on top of the inner altar and flattened them with the bottom of the shovel and prostrated himself and exited. The Kohen who won the privilege of the incense service would take the spoon from within the ladle and would give the ladle to his friend or relative. If some spilled from the spoon into the ladle, the friend or the relative gives it to him in his cupped hands. And they instruct him, be careful that you not begin directly in front of you, lest you get burned. He starts arranging the incense, and then he would leave the hekel. And the one who offered the incense would not offer it until the appointed one said to him, offer the incense. If it was the Kohen Gadol, the appointed one said to him, my master Kohen Gadol, offer the incense. The people moved away, and the Kohen Gadol offered the incense, and then prostrated himself and exited. When the Kohen Gadol enters the hekel to prostrate himself, 3 Kohanim would hold on to him, one on his right, one on his left, and one holding on to the precious stones. And when the appointed one heard the sound of the Kohen Gadol's feet as he was exiting the hekel, he lifted the curtain to him. He entered and prostrated himself and exited, and his fellow Kohanim entered and prostrated themselves and exited.
Okay. Next. What is Zara?
Okay, Ayin Gil, Aleph Gil. There are idolater festivals, Kalanda and Saturnalia and Charistus, and the coronation of the emperors and the birthday and the anniversary of his death. These are the words of Remeah, but the comments say any death for which there is a burning, there is idolatry, but for which there is no burning, there is no idolatry. However, on the day of the shaving of his beard or lock of hair, or the day he returned from the sea, or the day he was released from prison, or when an idolater makes a banquet for his son, prohibitions apply only on that day with regard to that man alone. If a city has an idolatrous service in it, it is permitted to transact business outside the city. If there was an idolatrous service outside, it is permitted to transact business inside it. What is the law regarding going there? When the road leads solely to that place, it is forbidden. But if one can travel on to another place, it's permitted. A city which has an idolatrous service, and there were shops in it that were decorated and those that were not decorated. This was once an incident in Beishan, where the sages said the decorated ones are prohibited, the undecorated ones are permitted. These are the things that are forbidden to sell to idolaters. its balin, and white figs on their stalks, and frankincense, and a white cock. Rabbi Yehuda says it is permitted to all to sell him a white cock among others. When it is by himself, he may clip its toe and sell it to him, for they do not sacrifice anything defective to an idol. All other things, if their purpose is unspecified, it's permitted to sell them, and if the purpose is specified, it's forbidden to sell them. Rameya says even fine dates, literally date palm, and katsav and livam, and it's forbidden for one to sell to idolaters.
Okay.
And
Stretch. Chagiga. Gimel Aleph.
the stringency of Kodesh compared to Truma is as follows. We may inverse vessels within other vessels of Truma, but not for Kodesh. The bottom, the inside, the handle are considered separate just as regards Truma, but not as regards Kodesh. Someone carrying a midrash may simultaneously carry Truma, but not Kodesh. The garments of those who eat Truma have midrash contamination, and for those who eat Kodesh. Unlike the rule of Kodesh is the rule of Truma. For in the case of immersing garments to be worn while handling a Kodesh, one must untie the knots, dry, immerse, and then retie them, but in the case of Truma, one may tie and then immerse. Vessels that were completed in a state of Tahara require immersion for use with Kodesh, but not for use with Truma. A vessel combines whatever it is in it with regard to Kodesh, but not with regard to Truma. The fourth degrees of combination in the case of Kodesh is valid, but only a third degree is invalid in the case of Truma. In the case of Truma, if one of a person's hands becomes contaminated, the other one is still pure, but in the case of Kodesh, one must immerse them both. The one hand contaminates the other as regards Kodesh, but not as regards Truma. We may eat dry food with contaminated hands if the foods are Truma, but not if they are Kodesh. The Onan and the one who needs to bring an Oton offering require immersion for eating Kodesh, but not for fast eating Truma. Okay. One more, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
No, that's it for Chagiga. Now it's Kilaim.
Aleph. If one sinks a vine into the ground, if there is not 3 handbreadths of soil above it, it may not bring seeds on it, even if it's sunk into a gourd or into a pipe. If it's sunk into a rock, then even if there are only 3 fingerbreadths of soil above it, it's permitted to bring seeds on it. The knee of a vine is measured from the second root. If one depresses 3 vines and the roots are visible, Reb Eliyahu ben Zadok says if there are 4 to 8 cubits beneath them, they combine it, but if not, they do not combine. A withered vine is forbidden, but it does not render forbidden. Reb Meir says cotton is also forbidden, but does not render forbidden. Reb Elazar ben Sadok says in his name, also above the vine, it is forbidden, yet it does not render forbidden. The following forbid, but do not render forbidden, the remainder of a vineyard laid waste, the remainder of a mahol of a vineyard, and the remainder of a gaps in an aris. The remainder of trellis frames, but beneath in the vine, tillage space of a vine, and the 4 cubits in a vineyard, those render forbidden. Okay. We're almost finished with this. Okay. That was it.
There was one more.
Oh, sorry. Okay. If one causes his vine to overhang his neighbor's cereal crop, it renders it forbidden and is responsible for it. Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon say a man does not render forbidden that which is not his.
Okay, and we're done.
Okay. After Kalayim, what are we doing?
Well, after Kilaim, we're not that close to the end of Kilaim.
Yeah. Yeah, I have like 4 more left.
We got like another Perek or something. Okay, well, after Kilaim is Shvius.
Yes, okay. I heard something very interesting the other day. I'll just take a second. I heard